Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 2. It's called Maps and Legends. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And did you know, Tara, that last episode we went for over an hour on the on the episode? Which is impressive given that it was like 45 minutes long. We actually exceeded the length of the show by quite a margin.
Well, I had a lot to say.
I've got a funny feeling we're going to have a lot to say about this week's episode as well. Couple things in particular. So we started with a flashback to 14 years ago, and I'm glad they actually specified 14 years because it came up with the year first. And I'm sure there's some Star Trek nerds out there who know what year it is, and they know that that's 14 years ago. But most of us mere mortals need it to say 14 years ago.
Was it a year or was it a star date?
No, it was a year. It was like 23 something or 24 something.
Okay, yeah, because star dates, I mean, some nerds say that it makes sense, but I'm pretty sure it was randomized. It was just random numbers in the beginning, and there is no way to make sense of them.
Yeah, I'm willing to buy that as well. But no, this was a year because I recognized it, like I understood it when I read it.
Okay.
So, but it's on Mars. It's this synthetic uprising that we've heard about. And we get to see this F8 is the name of the particular android that rebels.
Wow. Kind of like Fate.
There you go. Very good. And we see kind of the workers kind of complain because it's First Contact Day, and hey, I've seen that movie. I know what First Contact Day is.
I like that it's a holiday.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's
Although
a holiday.
it's a little confusing, like because the workers complaining like. Some people have the day off and other people still have to work, but like normally it's in like a normal like capitalist society, people who have holidays off or like the people who have to work on a holiday so other people can have it off, like get paid extra. But in the Star Trek universe there is no currency, so like what's their incentive to going to work? I guess just to be good people.
Their duty to Starfleet and the Federation.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this is Starfleet.
It's not Starfleet, but
it's a shipyard.
Yeah. Well, whatever governing body.
Maybe Starfleet has their shipyards too. I'm not really sure.
But yeah, it's a shipyard on Mars, and the robot has a couple of creepy moments where he tries to smile. I did like the small touch in the design of the androids here, that the colour they're painted is very Data-like. Like, nothing else about them is Data-like, but the way they're painted feels like Data's like colour.
Yeah, it's like that pale, shimmery champagne colour, and then their eyes are the yellow, like Data.
Yeah.
It's almost, I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if he looks a bit like Maddox. Since Maddox designed these and Noonien made Data in his own image, like maybe Maddox would make it in his image. I mean, he's more Maddox looking than Data, but like, not really.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it depends. Maybe if they've recast Maddox, if we see him later, he'll look like this new Maddox. He'll be like, oh, that looks like this new Maddox. Although presumably Maddox will be much older though, so maybe we'll just have to buy that this is the younger version of the new Maddox, if that makes sense. That gets complicated. But we see him like sort of like his eyes change color, and then he like starts doing lots of things in the computer, and like then they notice it and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then he kills one of them, like just right there and then, just outright.
Yeah. Brutal.
So yeah, it's a nice little flashback to I'm liking that that's now 2 in a row. We've kind of started with like a Mars. I mean, the last one was a dream, but the kind of like the start of each episode might like reveal more of kind of the mythology that we're now building upon for this new show that in this time skip from the last time we saw
Did you
Picard.
watch the last short treks?
I've not seen the last couple yet. I mean, me and Connor are going to do them. I mean, I think the plan originally was to do them before Picard, but then he wasn't doing Picard, so it became kind of weird because it wasn't like...
Okay. Yeah, because the last one that came out was called Children of Mars, and it was about people... I won't say exactly, but it's mostly about like 2 kids who have parents on Utopia Planatia. So you do see the events that lead up to this sort of through the eyes of other characters.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because most of the short treks were more tied to Discovery, so it's interesting that one of them at the end...
Yeah, this last one was definitely like a little tie-in to Picard.
That's kind of neat. So Picard with his 2 Romulan housemates, or if you want to call them that, Laris and Zaban. We get a lot of stuff here. I'm going to complain later about an exposition dump later in the episode. This one's also kind of an exposition dump. I don't mind this one quite as much. So this one was a bit more interesting. Although I will say whoever's naming these Romulan things can basically piss off, because they're just... okay. What was the secret police that the Picard already knows about? The one that's already established. Tal Shiar, right? So... Yeah. Right,
that one's been around for a long time.
These sound like... This is why I hate fantasy, right? They sound like fantasy names. But Tal Shiar, right? And then the second one was like the new thing that we found out about, the secret police that's even secreter.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, it's new, so it's going to take me a little bit.
Hold on.
I have the Kelly Bundy syndrome. So when I learn something new, something old has to leave. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Zat Vash, that was it. Right. The Zat Vash.
The Zat Vash.
Yes, I noted it down. I actually mentioned, I texted it to you to say, I'm leaving this here so I can read it later. I just scrolled up through the chat so I could read it. I knew this was a smart plan. The Zat Vash. So the Zat Vash...
The secret police, yeah.
Yes. Or this myth, because... again, I've still on names here, so I need to check them every time. So Zaban's like, oh, here we go again, this myth. He doesn't believe they're real. But Laris, who, by the way, is very Irish, and what's funny, because there's a big F-bomb that happens later in the episode, and I saw some people online who are clearly, who are not familiar with the way Irish people say the F-word, the soft version where they say feck with an E. Because there's a moment here where Laris says feckin' jokers or something like that, or like when she's talking about the Zat Bash, and like, because it's not really saying the F word, I never even noticed she said it, because I'm just used to that being an Irish thing.
Yeah, I didn't notice it either.
Yeah, because people were talking about the F-bomb later in the episode, and I saw them say, yeah, well, the Irish woman said it earlier. I was like, well, did she? And apparently, if you're watching with the subtitles, whoever did the subtitles doesn't understand the different Irish version and just put the actual F-bomb in the subtitles. So that's pretty funny to me. But so that was there. But
yeah, I didn't even notice it. I thought there was just the one, obvious F-bomb later on.
Yeah. So, which I still think is a lot harsher than what she says, because she's, again, it's very... Why there's a Romulan who's got a thick Irish accent with Irish dialect, I don't know, but...
She's from the Irish part of Romulus, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Where the leprechauns all live.
That's where they come from. Maybe the Leprechaun series is actually a Star Trek spinoff. Good to know.
Yeah, leprechauns are just Irish Romulans. That's all they are.
Is there a leprechaun? No, it's not a leprechaun. It was going to be a leprechaun, but it was like an O'Brien plotline, so they made it like a children's, like Rumpelstiltskin instead of a leprechaun, because Nicole Meany was going to walk off the set forever if they made him do a scene with a leprechaun.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it's a really bad episode. It's still a 10. It's still watchable, but it's not good.
Yes, we established last episode that Tara's scale for Star Trek's a little bit broken. It's basically like it's like she's at the North Pole with a compass, and no matter what she does, the compass just keeps spinning. That's what our Star Trek rating's like. It just keeps going to a 10 somehow. So no, but it's intercutting between them explaining some of this in his office at the vineyard, with them investigating the crime scene of the murder of the boyfriend from the first episode, and basically this has been scrubbed. This has been scrubbed so well that someone's come in and just made it as if nothing ever happened. But she's able to use some tricks. We got a couple of little neat moments here where she pulls out some Romulan like crime scene tech, and Picard's like, oh, that's inconclusive and doesn't, the results are duplicable at best, and she's like, yeah, that's what we wanted you to think.
Yeah, I like that moment too. I thought the editing was a bit strange, how they had like two scenes like intertwined the whole time, because the way like the music was building up in the moment, I kept thinking, ooh, who are we going to see here? It's going to reveal somebody. I'm like, oh, it's just them.
Yeah.
But then we're still like in the vineyard, like talking about the what are they called?
The Zat Bash?
The Zat Bash.
Sorry, no, I messed that up. The Zat Vash. Zat Vash.
Zat Vash.
Zat Vash.
But they're talking about
the more
that
you
and
say
intertwining
it, the more you say it, the more I'm hearing that Vaj, right? Zat Vash.
Well, now I'm not going to forget it.
Zat Vash. That Vaj.
That Vash.
Yeah.
Yes, that
You're basically a German saying that Vaj. Zat Vash.
Nine.
What was I going to say? So so they're looking up stuff, and it's like they figure out, okay, well, our sister, because they want to find a sister, that they decide that that's the important thing. Is like, okay, there's a sister, we have to find her. And it's okay, so she may have called in, and because they're so identical, more identical than twins even, the computer system, the Siri, if you will, of this world would mistake, one for the other, and they'd be able to sort of look at the records and find out if that ever happened. And basically they come to the conclusion, and the one thing I thought was weird about this scene, outside of the over stylistic kind of like, it was almost edited like a, that scene in like heist movies where they start
that's what I was getting to. It was very much like a heist film.
They start explaining the plan, and they'll start like intercutting with the actual plan happening as they're describing it and explaining it to everyone in the room. If I felt like that, the way it was cutting between the two things. But the thing that bugged me though about the end of this scene is that when she's like, hey, this type of information packet, that this only happens when it's like, interplanetary, and she turns to her like, it means that wherever she is, she's off-world. And Picard looks shocked, and the music goes dun dun dun, and I'm like,
that's the thing, like,
it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek.
So strange to me. Like, it was because they were thrilled. First, the music, I didn't care for the music in this episode because it felt like a CW show or something where they're telling you this is going to be intense, the strings are getting hot, and then
I didn't understand, because this is Star Trek. Traveling from planet to planet is like the most normal mundane thing in this show, in this universe.
Yeah, but like getting squinty eyes to commercial is also a very Star Trek thing.
Yeah, but the only people watching it with commercials are like Canadians, because it's on like a broadcast. The only people watching it with commercials are Canadians, though.
Or people who aren't paying for the premium.
Oh, is there a cheaper version that you get with ads?
Yeah, the cheaper version has ads for CBS. Yeah, it's like $5 a month or something, but you have to deal with ads, so I don't pay for that. I get the good one.
Yeah, you get the premium version. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but the way it was like intercut, and when they were talking about that Vash.
Zat Vash.
My camera.
You look like someone who's just pointed at you and yelled that Vaj. That's what that looked like right there. You're like, what?
Anyway, and then but the music was building up in a way they're like, okay, who are we going to see? Who are they going to reveal in this secret apartment or whatever that we're about to go into? And it's just them, and they're still talking at the vineyard, and they're talking in this place, this apartment. And it's not like the scenes were bad. It was just odd. It was like flourish for flourish's sake. I don't know.
It was.
Like they could have just been two separate scenes.
This might offend you here. Now, I actually overall like this episode quite a bit, maybe even more than episode 1 for a number of reasons, and I'll get to those. Some mythology stuff mainly, but I would describe the over-stylized nature of this pair of scenes together as the Star Trek Discovery portion of the episode, because Star Trek Discovery, especially early on, always had to be quick, had to move fast, and it moved too fast. One of my complaints with Discovery is that it moved too fast. I think what I like about Picard is that it's moving much slower, and I like that it's taking its time and establishing things and building up.
The first episode felt like it was still part of that universe, and yeah, maybe you're right. I don't dislike Star Trek Discovery for its pacing at all. Like once you go like, okay, this Star Trek is different, and I accept that, and just kind of go with the flow that they've set up. Like, it's easy to get into, I think. Yeah, but it is a little flourishy. It has a lot of, like, Dutch angles, like a lot of Dutch angles.
A lot of Dutch angles.
Halfway through season 2, you're like, okay, just get a steady cam.
Maybe it's the Dutch person that's shouting.
Steady shot, please.
Shouting, Zat Vaj. Maybe that's the Dutch person shouting that during all these Dutch angles. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, though. It's only for this pair of scenes. It's not the rest of the rest of the episode is basically the same pacing as episode 1. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, it seems out of place.
It's not Discovery. That's why it sticks out, because it's not like it's Discovery-fied the whole episode. It's just this one kind of pair of scenes. But there's some interesting mythology stuff in this scene that I do really enjoy. And I like the whole Romulan bit about, oh, we wanted you to think that. I like that. But
yeah, I like her character, actually.
Yeah. The Zatvash, though, we have to talk about the Zatvash and like what we hear about them, particularly in this scene, is that they exist to keep a secret, like the most dangerous of secret. And they're so deadly afraid of synthetics that they will do anything to. And she mentions that Romulans don't really have computers in the same way that other races do. They have like simple computers that do numbers and things like that, but they
don't have AI.
They don't have any kind of like AI or even primitive AI. Which is interesting mythology, because I mean, if that's brought up in earlier Trek, I've not encountered it yet. I don't think so anyway. I don't remember it coming up so far.
I mean, Romulans have always been known for their technology, but not for like
computers.
Anything,
yeah,
anything like that. Like Romulans have the cloaking device. They have like the big weapons, the big, like they're very sneaky. They sneak in, they plant a mine that doesn't look like anything anyone else would have developed. You see it and you go, oh, that's Romulan technology, because it's really brutal and it's like, I don't know, it's tricksy.
So that was interesting, and also this idea that they're scared of synthetics. Okay, so that gives us a bit more context to why they're maybe going after these twins, why they care so much. They're trying to stop something from spreading, but it also mentions this big secret, this big dangerous secret that can never get out. Now, admittedly, what I'm about to suggest might be ridiculous because it's something that may have happened later in like Next Generation or Voyager, and I've not seen it, so this might be silly. But is it possible, given that a lot of this show, and we're going to get to this other plot in a minute, is about the Borg? Is it possible that this secret, whatever it's to do, is to do with the creation of the Borg, and that's why they're so scared of synthetics?
Maybe. I sort of thought season 2 of Discovery was kind of hinting towards like the Federation accidentally created the Borg.
Well, yeah, me and Connor thought that as well when we were watching it, but then it turned out to not be even, it felt like
that was like a red herring or whatever.
Yeah.
But because they even have like a variation of the Resistance is futile line.
Yeah. But no,
anyway, yeah, it's I don't know. Like maybe I don't think so. If it was something that was brought up, it would not be in Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. It would be in Voyager, which is not my area of expertise really, because Voyager is a very Borg heavy series.
So,
but the Borg are in the Delta Quadrant, which is very, very far away.
Well, yeah, but this happened. I'm saying that this probably happened a long time ago, like before maybe even the Vulcans and the Romulans split. Because I mean, again, is that still a mystery? Like what happened with them and how they split and why they're so similar?
I think so.
Because I'm getting the feeling that this big secret, whatever it is, whether it relates to the Vulcans and the Romulans splitting, or if it relates to the Borg, maybe both. Like, is it to do with something that happened millennia ago that? And there's a couple of other like shows and movies and things that I'm kind of thinking of when I'm thinking about this revealing some big truth. And obviously this is nothing that's been planned for a long time, because obviously the Borg were created a long time ago and Vulcans and Romulans were created in the 60s and all this shit. But
that doesn't mean that you can't like add new things to the lore.
I'm getting the impression here that we're going to get the secret at some point, and what they want to do here is to really shake up the what we know about Star Trek and be like, hey, no, this is.
Maybe. I don't really know too much about the history of the Romulans, and obviously the Romulans and the Vulcans have a close ancestor of some type, but I don't know at what point they split. Like, the planets are very far away, so they had to be able to be, be able to travel through space.
I actually saw people, I don't necessarily go with this. I mean, if this turns out to be true, then fair enough, but I saw people online, theorizing that either the Romulans or the Vulcans are part synthetic and were created by the other, and that's what the secret's going to be. I don't necessarily think that. I think...
I don't know about that either.
I think the Romulans, like, at one point a long-ass time ago, working on a technology or synthetics, accidentally creating the Borg, and then, like, sort of, like, firing them off into space as far as they could, right? And then eventually they came back. Almost like V'ger, right? Like, eventually they came back into, like, sort of civilized space.
Yeah, that's funny.
And that's kind of like how it is, and that's what the big secret is. And maybe that's why. But then again, I mean, obviously part of the plot we're going to get to in this is that this Borg cube, which they're referring to as the artifact, is owned right now by Romulans, and it's Romulans who are studying it and want to understand it. And is that because they're trying to see how far the Borg have evolved since they last seen them, or since?
My guess is that they're not really studying it. They're more just trying to get rid of the technology, or
Sure.
because it's in their space, they're trying. Like it's also it's like a reclamation site, and they're also reclaiming Borg. I think.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
They're taking the Borg, they're removing all the technology, and I don't think those Borg are dead. I think they're trying to bring them back.
Yeah, it's kind of because that's our main character there, Soji. She's hoping to be able to resuscitate them and like somehow bring them back to life. And there's some interesting stuff that comes from that as well. We're kind of dancing about a little bit. I'll go back to sort of going through it more or less in order, but the stuff.
Well, I mean, you have an interesting theory, but I don't really know very much about the history of the Romulans other than like. Or the Vulcans and when they split, but it would have to be a time they would have to split at a time where they were warp capable, and so that does mean that they would have advanced technology.
So some of this Romulan and Vulcan stuff is just sort of things that I've seen other people theorize, but my instinct when I was watching the episode is that the secret could be something to do with the creation of the Borg. That was my gut instinct as they were like talking about it, and why they're so afraid of synthetics.
Maybe, Yeah, I don't know. My thought has always been that the Vulcans and Romulans are actually very much the same species, but because Vulcans used to be incredibly warlike, and they went through a really dark period, and then had to control their emotions in order to become a peaceful species.
Couldn't you describe the Borg as an attempt to control emotions?
I mean, yeah, they don't have emotions.
Yeah, like. Was the Borg like a first attempt of like?
But like
doing that?
every time you see like Vulcan, there's not really any technology. I mean, maybe there is some AI, but like it's a very barren planet.
I'm not suggesting that the Vulcans actually have like any tech or whatever to like make them be Vulcan. I'm just saying that like since the Borg are essentially the removal of all individuality and emotion and all these things. Like, could the Borg have been like some weird attempt to do it like unnaturally first before it was just like a because
they both the Romulans and the Borg really love the color green.
There you go. That's the one thing that stuck through after all the emotion was removed is that little taste for green was still there.
It's good color.
So I don't know, because probably my favorite scene in the episode actually might be when they're actually cutting or taking parts of the Borg off. I love seeing those Borg lying on the table and then like sort of dismantling them and being like, oh, look at this weird
it was gross
cyberpunk gooey tech. I love how grimy it is. It's great.
When you remove the eyepiece, it's just
I love it. And there's some interesting stuff that's met because there's the new person who arrives whose name is far too long and ridiculous. Nishal is her first name, but the last name is I'm scared of that last name. But she is asking some questions about how safe this is, and because I was under the impression last episode that maybe the Borg are just defeated now, but what it sounds like now is no, the Borg are still out there. The collective of the Borg are still out there, but this cube has become disconnected, and they've just abandoned it because it for whatever for it being defeated's sake or whatever.
Something about normally the Borg will come back and collect everything that is still around. Like they don't leave. Borg are a no man left behind policy.
So Nishal's fear makes sense.
There are some events that happen in like season 5 or 6 of the Next Generation and season 7 that have to do with the Borg that maybe changes their policy about going back to collect.
It was just some interesting stuff here, because we also hear like a Romulan like commander who's like sort of giving all the science recruits their warnings and like don't touch assume anything unless we've told you something safe, assume it's dangerous.
Yes,
and things like that.
It's like when you see a bee floating in a pool, like just because it's dead doesn't mean it can't sting you.
Yeah, because they say that there's going to be like Borg drones like where you're going. These parts of the cube you're going to are going to have collective. But they're not connected to it anymore. It's just really interesting stuff. Like, what is their overall purpose here?
I'm never going to say no to more Borg storyline also. Borg are the best.
I think the Borg, I think the reason why we have this, because even though a lot of my least liked stuff so far on the show is on the cube, because I don't really care about Narek or the romance that they've got brewing with Soji. Like,
Narek is like my least. I don't like this Eddie Redmayne Romulan.
There's a moment when Soji
I know
meets...
I'm not supposed to like him, but...
When Soji meets Nishala, right? And she's like, oh, I didn't know Romulans could be so hot. And she's like, I know, me neither. And I'm like, shut up! What are you doing? Be quiet.
It's interesting how Romulans look so different from each other. Like, some of them have the really big, strong brow, and some of them just look like Vulcans.
Yeah, some of them do. Because the scene where they wake up, like they try to have a little bit of humor here, where he's so secretive, and she's like, "Oh, can you tell me like why you're so secretive?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't divulge that." They kind of have a little, joke about it going, but, but the actual stuff where she's doing her work, and we see the Borg lying on the table, and we get to hear a little bit of the mythology of like, okay, the collective is not connected to this anymore, so we don't have to be scared. We're reclaiming everything that's here. That's why there's like different races and species here as well, and all this stuff. It was interesting. I love this mythology stuff, and I love the Borg from what I've seen. And I've only had one Borg episode on Next Gen so far, from where I am, and I'm already into the Borg. So,
they don't really have bad episodes in Next Gen, so you'll be good.
Excellent news.
I also really like the detail, just for nerd sake of bringing up, that Soji, because she's working in like an operation, they work she's in like her surgical gear, which is all red, which was established in the older series, but like that whenever someone goes into surgery, everybody dons like this red uniform looks totally ridiculous in the show. But it works here. I like that they kept it.
We talked about this because I described it as a red nun uniform. Because what's her name?
I think Pulaski.
Yeah, Pulaski wore it when she was doing surgery on Picard. No, I remember.
Right, and it's so striking. You're like, what is this medical uniform?
Well, see, when she first started talking to Nishala, I actually thought to myself, okay, this character's getting a little bit of screen time. She feels like a red shirt, and she was wearing red, and I know Soji is as well, but I'm like, you're wearing red, and you feel like you're fodder. If you feel like you're here to be killed, so I don't fancy your chances in the long run. But maybe they'll buck the trend. I don't know.
Well, now we know it's not just the red shirts. There's also the red nun uniform that the surgeons wear. So I like that they use the red, even though like it's so ridiculous in the Next Gen and Deep Space Nine.
Do you think that was chosen as an ironic touch to be like, okay, so the joke is that red shirts always get killed, so we're going to make the uniforms of the people who save lives red?
I just assumed it was, if it's red, then people can't see blood, but not all blood is red in Star Trek.
Aye. Yes, exactly. So didn't think of that one, did you, writers or costume designers, whoever dictated such a thing? Okay. My cable, I'm all tangled over here. So one of the other things that comes back, to go back to Picard and Laris talking earlier on, another big detail that comes up is that Daj and Soji's histories are weird, because all the backstory of her getting into this school doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the way she described it is it looks like her entire history was fabricated 3 years ago. So that maybe gives an indication as to how old they actually are. I mean, they look obviously adults, but technically they might have only actually been alive and active for 3 years. They might not know that. They might think they've got all these memories in this past. In fact, I'd be inclined to say I don't think either one of them had any idea of what they are. I feel like they're, they think they're human. They think they've been alive their whole life. Would be my guess. So no, I thought that was that was an interesting
that is
detail.
Interesting. So we have like a little bit of a timeline that we can go back to.
Yeah, and if we see Maddox out there somewhere building his
Do you think there was in the dream sequence when Picard is playing with Data in the very first scene of the opening shot, like Data plays his hand and it's 5 queens of diamonds, I think, or maybe Queen of Hearts.
Oh yeah, it's 5
red queens.
Yeah, it's 5 of the same thing. Yeah, you're right.
Do you think we're gonna have 5 of these Daj Sojis instead of just 2?
That's actually
It'd be a weird foreshadow to have in a dream, because Picard doesn't actually know the events that are going to happen.
It's not a premonition. Unless they tell us somehow that he is getting premonitions for some reason. But like,
it would be weird if that was the case. But I couldn't help but think about it. Like, I wonder if there's gonna be 5 of them. Like that's an odd choice. I mean, immediately you're like, oh, that's an impossible hand. So it's, but it could
Yeah.
just be like a writer thing. Like, what if we make it like this? So when people go back and see that, be like, tricksy writers.
Yeah. Look at us, aren't we so smart? No, you're not that smart, and I'll get to why you're not that smart in a little bit. But yeah, no, that's an interesting point. You may be right. You may be onto something there. If anything, for it to make sense that he can dream that, though, I feel like it would actually have to like sort of be something that could get him to that from the past, like something that 5 red queens or 5 red ladies or 5 something like something from the past.
Maybe Data has done that before or something, or said something about it before.
Yeah, maybe there's like some obscure line in like one random episode where he says something about 5 queens or something like that, or I don't know, 5 ladies in red. Something that would translate to 5 king of queens or queen of diamonds. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so anyway, so all this stuff is interesting, and basically Picard says, look, he has a scene with a doctor who I assumed was from one of the shows, or you've told me he's not. It's just the way they talk. They say,
I don't think so. I looked it up just to make sure, and I really don't. I don't think so.
I know the actor though.
They said he's on this. They served together on the Stargazer, which was Picard's first command, and we don't see anything from the Stargazer. We see the Ferengi eventually, like I think in season 1, bring Picard this Stargazer. Like, we have your ship, and we get a little bit of history from there, but for the most part we don't know the crew. I
don't know the actor, though. The actor's one of those guys that pops up in a lot of TV shows and a lot of things. He's a bit in My Name Is Earl. He's in Drag Me to Hell. He was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine this past season. He's been on a lot of things. Like I'm seeing like tons of things that I've never seen, but I know like The Ghost Whisperer. I never watched that show, but yeah, of course he appeared in an episode of that. Like
he's definitely that guy. He's been in everything.
Yeah. He's getting quite old though. It's funny because obviously I don't really know him for any one thing in particular, but I saw him and he's looking old, even though
me too.
like even though I couldn't tell you exactly what I've seen him in.
I don't even know his name.
His name is David Paymer.
David Paymer.
There you go. So he comes by and he's there to tell him some bad news. Picard, an old thing which I'm assuming is from Next Gen.
I think it's well, the only time I can think of where he was diagnosed with a brain thing was the season finale or the series finale. But I thought that was something to do with I don't want to spoil it because it is really good.
Well, I was going to assume it was something to, because I obviously I've not seen it yet, but I know that there's a 2-parter where he kind of becomes part of the Borg, and I was going to assume that this defect that he has came from that, and this is something that because he says that this is something that
maybe that still be the case, but I know he gets diagnosed with something in the series finale.
Okay, but
there's also events that happen that could just make it something else. I don't really want to spoil that for you.
Yeah, sure.
But it's that. But that's like the only time that I can think of.
What's interesting though is he basically says to him that, look, you'll have a bit of time left, but all of these, because he doesn't know exactly what it is yet. He says it's going to be some sort of degenerative disease. I don't know which one yet, but they all end the same. Some will last, you'll last a bit longer than others. Some of them, but it's not going to be, and he's like, hey, I need you to clear me for flight with Starfleet. Can you do that? And obviously he's not really supposed to, but he's like, look, honestly, like, I don't know what crazy thing you've got planned, but if you're lucky, it might kill you before this thing does. And I'm like, that's really sad. Like,
that is really sad.
But at the same time, it's kind of this thing.
I'm assuming we have 3 years with him.
Yeah, because we're planning 3 seasons, but what I kind of like about it gives us some urgency, and it also means that he gets to go out on his own terms. He's not going to let himself go, get sick and die in a bed. He's like, no, I'm going to go out there and be freaking Picard. Like,
yeah, he is. Every time, like we see him talk about like the possibility of doing something, he's so excited, and you can tell that he's been like really regret. Like he thought he had the life that he wanted on the vineyard because he always sort of imagined that's how he would retire, but he's clearly not happy. How his life has gone.
Which leads us to him going to Starfleet, and I mean, I know you said you were annoyed at the music, but did you enjoy when he arrived in San Francisco, the main theme kicking in?
Oh, I'm always gonna feel something when that happens.
That was all right. Although it was I hammed a second time later, and I actually liked that one even more.
Mm-hmm.
But he shows up in San Francisco through the teleporter doors that we saw last episode, and he comes in. He's a visitor. And then the guy at the counter is like, "Oh, it's nice to see you up and around, Admiral." I'm like, "You cheeky bastard."
I actually really like this scene a lot because it's just this young like guy, ensign or whatever, working the front desk, and Picard comes up. He's like, "I have an appointment to see Admiral blank blank," and he goes, "Okay, your name?" I'm like, right, you're gonna make Picard say who he is?
I'm not actually suggesting to do this because it would be extremely like fan servicey, but just for joking sake, this guy should have been like Jean-Luc Crusher. The idea that Wesley had a kid and named him after Picard, and Picard didn't know about it. I'm not saying actually do that because that's fan service bullshit. Don't do it, show. It's okay as a joke. I'm only joking, right? Calm down. Oh dear.
I don't know if Will Wheaton's coming back in season 1.
Yeah,
but I mean, maybe, who knows?
This guy's name is probably Dick Diver. That's a joke for anyone who watched the TV news this past week.
That's a name?
I assume you've not listened to the TV news from this week yet.
No.
Trust me, you'll become very aware of Dick Diver by the end of that news episode.
Is it really a name, or is it like a position?
No, it's a character's name in a show from a famous book as well. It's not like it's just been made up now either. It's from a previous era.
He's like a dick, like a detective?
No, he's not a detective. His name's just Dick.
Oh, okay.
He's Dick Diver.
Whatever.
Trust me. It's one news story in the TV news this week that should have been 60 seconds long that ended up being 10 minutes long because the description was so ridiculous that we had to reread it like 3 times to try and understand it. Anyway, and we're also giggling from the name for a bit.
Well, I really like the scene with the ensign anyway, just because of the reactions from Patrick Stewart here, where he's just like, "Oh, okay, and I guess not everybody knows who I am. I have to say my name," and the guy's like, "Oh, it's good to see you up and about," and like the look of just, "I want to murder you," from Picard, as he puts on the badge and he slowly reveals that it's a visitor badge.
We've not got to the F-bomb yet, but I almost felt in this scene that Picard wanted to drop one of his own. He's like, "You effing little cretin."
I just love the scowl on his face for a bit. And it ends with him with the visitor pass. That was really funny. I like that scene.
There's a couple of moments, like, because one of the things that I was worried about going out of this series with Patrick Stewart is that sometimes when you have an actor who comes back years later to play a role, is that there's a risk of it never really feeling like it's them again. Like one of the examples I'd give is like Bruce Willis in the last couple of Die Hard movies never really felt like John McClane because he's changed so much since the third one that I never really felt like John McClane again. And there was definitely some moments in the first episode where it felt like it was just old Patrick Stewart and not old Picard. But I think this episode, as it went on, there was more and more moments where he was getting more stern with people he was talking to. That I started to sense Picard. I started to feel like it was him again. And that kind of works.
Picard is a very stern, no BS kind of guy.
But what's beautiful about that happening like this is that it feels intentional, and it's like he is finding himself again. He's becoming Picard again by having something to do, and it works. So he goes and sees this admiral, and he's like, "Look, I know I might have made a bit of a ruckus on the news with that interview, but I need a ship. I need a crew for one little secret mission to go and do something because I believe this is happening." And he mentions the Zat Vash, and he says Zat Vash, and he tells her about all this thing that's happening, because he says he's trying to stay away from the politics of Starfleet because he's away from all that, and she's like, That's not staying away. That's all of it. That you're just in all of it by bringing up all this crap. Secret Romulans, all this murder, right? And he's like, "I just need a ship, small crew, off books. Let me go do this mission." And then she said, "In fact,
you can even demote me. They can call me captain. They don't have to call me admiral."
And she responds, and this is the thing: is I don't really like F-bombs in Star Trek, and I'll explain why in a minute. As Tara disappears, but I do. In a vacuum, I do think this response from her is actually brilliant, because
me too. It's still so jarring.
Yeah, well,
hearing an F-bomb.
Because
what she actually says is like, yeah, she's kind of right.
Yeah, she's like effing hubris,
But if this was like an actual next gen episode and like he went somewhere to do that, they would give him whatever he wanted.
Yeah. So her saying he's got hubris, having the gall to ask that is great, because I've seen some people that have complained that the swearing takes them out of it because it's too present day. I don't agree with that, because I mean we've been saying F-bombs for a long time now. I don't see them going away.
I mean, yeah.
Like my problem.
Every society has foul language, so that we have some kind of an outlet. Like, even if we don't say that for it anymore, like it would get replaced with something.
Well,
else.
That's when you get to the Battlestar Galactica thing of saying frack instead. Now, part of that's to get around censors, but it has a little fun like evolution to it as well, right? But my problem isn't that it's too present, because I mean there's lots of other things they could say instead that would be a bigger problem. Like, let's say Picard said lol at one point. That would be like, wait, hold on a second. No, right? But saying an F-bomb, it doesn't bother me because it's a present day term, because it's not really. We've had F-bombs for a long time. My problem is that in the context of Star Trek, up until Discovery, no one in Star Trek had ever said it, so it feels out of place in the context of the world that they've set up. You know?
Yes, that's all.
That's the problem I have.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying too. Yeah. Like, obviously, people cuss in any universe, but like, it's just odd because we've never heard it in the show, and it just doesn't seem like. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the show.
It's that combined with the fact that I think the intention behind it feels juvenile to me. It feels that the writers want to say, hey, this is a mature Star Trek show. And I'm like, no, dropping F-bombs does not make you mature. You're mature by having mature themes, by saying mature things. Swearing is not mature.
Yeah, this isn't HBO's Star Trek or whatever. But,
don't get me wrong.
Whatever, I've accepted it. I accepted it in Star Trek Discovery. I'll accept it here.
If Tarantino,
at least in this one, it makes sense. The line it's not just saying it for the sake of saying it.
The line itself is actually, her response to his request is actually perfect. I think it's just the F-bomb feels out of place because it's Star Trek. That said, if Tarantino ever gets around to making a Star Trek movie, I
hope there's 99% just all F-bombs. And I want them all to come from Klingons.
Beam me the F up, Scotty. you effing got it, Captain.
Samuel L. Jackson to play Klingon, to give a speech about somebody's son sucking his two Klingon dicks.
I want the McCoy knockoff to be like, F it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not an effing bricklayer or something. just put effing in everything. Just F's everywhere.
God, I want this movie so bad. It combines literally my two favorite things.
Even though they don't go together at all.
I want it. I mean, yeah, it's like peanut butter and tuna fish. It sounds gross, but I'm curious. I'm just kidding. I don't eat tuna, but vegan tuna.
I like that's what the part you want to clarify is that you're vegan, so you wouldn't actually eat real tuna. Not the fact that the peanut butter and tuna itself sounds disgusting.
It does, but like if it's on a restaurant, it'd be like a menu on a restaurant. I'd be like, well, I'm curious. Back when I was more adventurous for food.
Sure. I had a little bit of salad there tonight. I'm being adventurous. I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. Look, I went decades without eating anything salad related, okay? I'm making an effort now, okay? I'm making an effort.
Good.
Thank you. Right.
Gotta get that fiber.
Well, I've been eating a lot of nuts and beans, so I've been making sure I get that fiber. Not together, though. That'd be weird. Right, so she basically says, no, piss off. Are you kidding me? No, of course I'm not giving you this ship. And I'm glad, because this would have felt really unrealistic to me, I think. This would have felt cheap if she'd just given him this. And I think the fact that he has to do this off books and has to do it kind of sneakily, and he takes out, he takes out a little case later on, and you don't see what he's got, but you suspect what it is, and he slaps it on his chest, and it's it's his Starfleet communicator, and he taps it, and he talks to someone whose name I didn't recognize, and it's not someone that we really know. Although she was in a comic book, so it does exist.
I have not read them. I know I'm a bad fan. I haven't read them. I've actually purchased them, but I've just not read them yet. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it before the third episode.
Trekologist. What was the term these days for the Trek fans? It keeps changing.
I've always gone with Trekkie. Classic. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard Trekker, and I thought it was weird.
Yeah, Trekkie's the one that sounds right to me, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's
a regional thing.
Nerdy. That one works, I think. So So yeah, he pulls out a communicator and he taps it and he says, "Don't hang up. I need help. I need a ship." And we don't know who he's talking to. But again, she's in the comic book, so maybe if you read the comic book, you recognize the name. But I didn't. I didn't know she was in a comic book till afterwards. I just, again, just browsing things about the episode, people were brand, oh, it's from the comic book. And there's a great moment actually. So he's talking to the two Romulans. He's talking to Laris and Zaban, or Zaban, Zaban or Zaban. How's the pronunciation on that? I don't know what it matters. Anyway, and Laris is basically like, "Oh, you stupid fucking idiot," in the Irish accent, just going for it. Unbelievably you are. I can't do an Irish accent. I'm sorry, but
I wonder if this is where the up the long ladder people ended up on Romulus and started a colony.
I ate some trigger phrases.
An Irish colony.
Top of the morning to you. Kick Bishop Brennan up the arse. Yeah, I can't really do it. That last one was from Fall Ted for any people who, which is the pinnacle of Irish achievement is Fall Ted for anyone who's not in the know. So.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Yeah. So. And she's like, "Oh, you stupid idiot! What are you doing? You can't do this. It's silly." And she smashes like the teacups or whatever she's got. And there's a small touch here where when Zaban goes in to like help her, like Picard goes down too to help her pick them up. Like it's not like he treats them like servants. He goes down with them to like pick them up. It's just a small touch, but he's explaining what he's doing, and like Zaban says something like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, she's right. We're going to have to come with you." It's like, "No, that's not what I meant. You shut your effing mouth." But it's really funny, but obviously I think what maybe made you pop after this is when, look, you need a ship, you need a crew. What about Geordi? What about Riker? What about Worf? And he's like, no. If I ask them, they'll definitely do it, and that's why I can't ask them. I thought that logic was a little bit weird. Like,
I thought that they were saying the names for the sake of just saying the names, so that all the fans, all the Trekkies go, "Ooh,
we're going to see the names." Yeah, we're going to see Riker. We know that much. I expect. I've
heard rumors about Michael Dorn coming back.
Well, let's be honest.
I haven't looked into it to see anything more.
Here's the thing: I expect to see everyone possible by the end of the third season. Right? Not this season.
If I get more Worf, I'll be so happy.
You're getting Worf. There's no way you're not getting Worf.
I want a Worf spin-off series so bad. There was a rumor of one like 10 years ago, and I was just like, please make this happen.
I think you'll see all of them by the end of the show. In fact, it wouldn't surprise, like, honestly, if I was to make a prediction, just out pie in the sky prediction right now, I think that if maybe the second season finale, maybe even the season 1 finale, but certainly by the finale of the show, there is going to be one moment where that entire crew assembles on the ship with Picard, right? They're going to be with him on a ship. I promise you that's happening.
Even Wesley Crusher?
He's 50-50, but the rest...
I'll say, the way that Crusher's storyline sort of ends in the show, I don't think he's coming back. Like, it ends in a way that it's like, he could, but like... He kind of, I don't know. I don't think he's coming back.
He went to Tasha Yar's home planet and he joined a rape gang. Is that why he's not coming back?
Well, I mean, it's not like he has any trouble with the ladies.
He's in complete control.
That's right.
If you don't remember a line of dialogue that Wesley has in Star Trek The Next Generation season 2, at one point when he's talking to Picard, he says, when it comes to the ladies, he's in complete control. And he's like 14 when he says this, which makes it 3 times as ridiculous as it normally would be.
Oh, it's great. I think it's a guarantee that LeVar Burton's going to come back for the show. I mean, I don't know if it's been announced or anything. Well, I have no idea. But he's, pretty well known for directing a lot of Trek, and he's done a lot of Discovery. I'm certain he's going to be directing.
And besides,
Picard coming back.
And besides, like the whole story, he's like Data's best friend, right? Like Data and Geordi have like a bond.
Yeah.
So, like, I expect that they have to pay that off at some point. Again, I don't necessarily think we're going to get it in season 1, but we've got 3 seasons. I think by the end of this show...
by the end of the series, like, Geordi's probably the most... he knows so much about the positronic brain. Like, he's always the one who repairs Data. Like, he's a bit of an expert when it comes to that, as much as you can be.
I mean, hell, we're getting the holographic Doctor from Voyager in season 2. They've confirmed that. So,
oh, we are?
Yeah.
Robert Picardo's coming back?
Picardo's going to be on Picard, yes.
Will he have aged?
I mean, he shouldn't have.
I guess they could DH him.
They won't. He'll just be older. Unless they spend a lot of money.
Though, if he's a hologram.
I mean, he shouldn't, but I mean...
Maybe he wants to.
Well, yeah, but Data shouldn't have aged, especially not in Picard's dreams, but he had.
He's just a little puffy. Same age. Puffier.
Oh, he put on weight. Picard imagined him putting on weight, did he?
Maybe Picard's got a brain tumor or something. Okay, leave it alone.
Oh dear. Anyway, so obviously, you get the you get the pop from them saying the name. And he's like, no. And I've already made the call. I've already made the call to someone who doesn't like me very much. And he goes to meet this person, what's her name? Raffi. Raffi, yeah. And she...
Great hair.
She doesn't really want to help him, but he's like, I brought some vintage Picard 86, which was the year the show started, if I remember right. And she's like, all right, damn it. So... yeah, so he's gonna get a ragtag team. So I think, I think we're still being set up. I think some of these seasons of these cable and streaming shows feel a lot more like movies to me in the way they're structured, in the sense that they still because movies for the most part, not always, obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part have 3-act structures, and I can't help but feel.
87.
Damn it, I was close. I can't help but feel that this show, it feels like a 3-act structure, and that we're still in Act 1, and there's still at least one more episode in Act 1 before he gets his ship. Like him leaving the planet is going to be the end of Act 1.
Okay.
That's just my guess. Maybe it won't feel that at all. Maybe it'll feel like completely different, but like at least so far, given the pacing.
No, I did watch the after show with Will Wheaton, and he was interviewing Akiva Goldsman, I think, who's one of the showrunners. Does that sound right?
It does sound right.
And they basically said the first 3 episodes are basically the pilot, the setup.
That's good. See, I'm glad they're not rushing through it. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what else Akiva Goldsman has written?
I know it's a lot of junk with some gems in there.
Batman and Robin.
Oh yeah. Didn't he also do The Mummy? Or did he just produce it?
No. He may have been involved. I don't know if he wrote it though. Stephen Summers directed it, but I don't remember who wrote it.
I mean, that was a Schumacher film, more than a Goldsman film.
No, that was a studio film.
Schumacher said, "I want to make something totally ridiculous," and
no. To Schumacher's credit, he's not happy with that film, and he feels like he was forced to make a 2-hour toy commercial. So it's not like he's happy with that either. And
well, I think they were both trying to go for satirical, and it came off as just kind of insulting.
Yeah.
It is somewhat watchable, though.
I'll say it.
All right, everybody, chill.
I think it's more watchable than Batman v Superman, and people are going to fight me on that. But you know what? That's fine. But yeah, it's got Arnold one-liners. What more do you want in the world? I
think the movie's going to hold up better than Batman v Superman.
Yeah, Batman v Superman's like.
I think in 20 years, a younger generation will find it and be like, "Can you believe this movie existed and what got made?" And
yeah, whereas Batman v Superman,
like a cult classic.
Batman v Superman's just kind of like, look at how edgy we can be. We're the edgy dark period in these movies. Yeah, edgy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we did skip over one scene with Picard though, where he talks to Alison Pill's character, Dr. Jurati, who comes by and talks to him, and he's all impressed because she likes, Earl Grey tea, which is, whatever. And she's like, nah, the important thing now is to find the twin, and that's what they're going to look into. So obviously he's going to recruit her to go on the ship. At least I'm guessing that, given that she's like second build. I feel like she's going to be around a lot. So that makes sense. So that's cool. The scenes that I have more of a problem with, because I did mention at the start, I have some exposition dump scenes that I don't like, and we've not gotten to those yet. And lo and behold, they feature our favourite Romulan, Narek. They also feature the Admiral who goes to this Commodore O, who I think is a Romulan, who isn't in disguise. Tara thinks is a Romulan who's disguised as a Vulcan, and I have no idea which one of us is right.
Well, I'm right, because Romulans weren't allowed in the Federation.
Okay, I get you saying that, I do, but her dialogue...
There's no way there's a Commodore in the Federation, in Starfleet, that is a Romulan.
But her dialogue with the Admiral, when she's talking to her over the phone, her dialogue to me indicated that at the very least this Admiral knows she's Romulan. Because her dialogue was basically, yes, the Admiral's, of course I brought this to you, and then of course the Commodore, the Romulan, says... Yes, and obviously I would know about it if this was a thing, and since I don't know about it, it's not a thing, and if I did know about it, it would be an act of war. So the way she spoke to me felt like someone who is part of, the Romulan society that is there to represent Romulans. Now, I could be wrong, but...
Maybe she's just in charge of, monitoring Romulan activity?
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe that's true.
I mean, they didn't make it clear. So...
They didn't, no. Her This is the problem. Romulans and Vulcans look the goddamn same, and
they do. Yeah, I mean the only difference is in the forehead, but they seem to be playing with that a bit in the show too, which is fine. Romulans can look different and whatever. It's no big deal. But it's a bit unclear unless you know the history. There is a really well-known episode of Next Gen where there's a Starfleet officer who is in trouble because he claimed that he was a quarter Vulcan, but really he's a quarter Romulan, and he's getting kicked out of Starfleet for it.
Yeah, so after this call though, Lieutenant Narissa Rizzo comes in, and she looks human, although the next scene actually confirms that she's a Romulan in disguise. Romulans in disguise, more than meets the eye. Sorry. Romulans. But she comes in and she gets her ass chewed for not doing a good enough cleanup job at the attack on Dash. And
because Picard knows everything now.
Yeah, and basically he says, look, are you monitoring the other one? And she's like, yeah, I've got my best man on it. And I'm like, okay, so it's probably going to be Narek. And they actually confirm it in the very next scene. This scene felt clunky to me. I'm also not necessarily thrilled about the whole infiltration side of this. I don't really care that much.
Okay.
How do you feel about it? How do you feel about all this?
The infiltration of the Zat-Vash?
Well, the Zat-Vash have infiltrated Starfleet.
Oh. I mean, I think it's an obvious place to go. To be honest, that is what the Romulans are known for. They're known for being sneaky. And
I guess that's fair. I feel
and it's not like it has to happen before.
Well, but I think that's my problem, though. I think even I have seen enough of this type of plot in Star Trek where there's an infiltrator.
Yeah, and it's going to happen again. I mean, it happened in Conspiracy. It's going to happen in Deep Space Nine with the Founders, and it's something that happens. And you think they would have better security?
They're too trusting. They're too damn trusting, that Starfleet. I had a problem with the exposition here because it very much spelled out, okay, we're the ones hunting them, we've infiltrated, and then it goes to a scene of Picard doing whatever, one of the scenes we talked about already, and then the final scene of the episode I had a problem with, because it was an exposition dump of her as a hologram saying I'm on my way, and when I get there, if you've not got anything out of her, I'm going to do things my way, and it implied that would be torture or whatever she's going to do.
Yeah.
And my problem.
Well, we know that now. Narek, is that his name?
Narek, I'd say, but yeah.
Narek. Okay, we know now that he knows that she is something special.
Yes.
And that's why he's trying to get close to her. He's just seducing her to get, I don't know, information or something. And we know that they're brother and sister, although, I mean, he's a Romulan, so he could have been lying, but the previous episode, Narek said that he had a brother. He once had a brother. So maybe she's, also, she's changed species and sex for disguise. Maybe this is the brother.
I mean, he could just have a brother and also a sister.
Well, she asked if he had siblings or something, and he said, I once had a brother or something.
He lies, I guess.
But he could have just been lying.
Yeah.
Also, you don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. This felt clunky to me, and I also my biggest problem with it though is that it didn't feel like the end of an episode. Like, see if it had like cut to the credits when she appeared, right? And it was like done. He's the inside man, even though it was kind of obvious. But at least that would feel like the end of an episode. Instead, there's a whole scene of her talking to him, and she has like some sort of like, yeah, well, and if we fail, it's going to be bad news for us. And she disappears. He looks kind of somber, and it cuts to black. It didn't feel like the end of an episode. I was like, oh, that's it. Okay.
I thought the end of the episode was when Picard did the thing with the badge and called for help,
and the main theme played,
and it cut to black. I went, oh, what a great way. Oh no, there's still more. Okay.
Yeah, because he's like, I need a ship, and it's like dun 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 dun, and the camera goes up to the sky, the stars. It's like, dun,
yeah, way to end on a high, right?
Yeah, it's an uplifting moment. So I actually enjoyed the episode. I like all the mythology stuff that it set up, but I do think clunky exposition in both the scene with the Commodore with this and Narissa, and then Narissa and Narek. I thought those two scenes were easily my weakest of the episode, and I think the ending just didn't feel like an ending of an episode. It felt really weirdly just kind of like, oh, okay, that's it. All right, fair enough. Come back next week, I suppose.
Definitely a 10 though. Keeping it going with the 10s. Way to go, CBS. Good job. I'm really into it. I'm excited.
I'm just trying to think of what
it seems like we're getting a ship next week, and Picard's going in the captain's seat.
I don't usually rate individual episodes of a TV show, but I'm tempted to do it on this just to counterpoint your 10s every episode, just to give a real number of some kind. I think this, this one, I want to give it the 8. Because I think it's a bit better than last time. So am I saying...
My dog is really upset right now.
Am I saying 7.5 and then 8? I think I am. But I mean, it's... I don't know. Maybe 7 and 7.5.
Yeah, I think it's your Scottish accent, but you say the word 10 wrong. But I'm glad you think it's a 10 also.
Picard's not the only one with a delusional part of his brain kicking in. Nothing, Tara. Nothing. Did I ever tell you how good a co-host you were? Yeah, love having you here. You're great.
I know, I'm the best.
So that is episode 2 of Star Trek Picard. Unless I forgot anything, but once again, this was a lengthy discussion. We seem to enjoy going.
We get to Star Trek rocks.
You pick the mythology. The sort of the desert area where the woman Raffi lives is the same place where Kirk fought the Gorn. Yes. Yeah.
It's a like a centerpiece in a few Star Trek shows, but
yeah.
I always think of the Gorn.
I definitely saw it in something that wasn't Star Trek after seeing it in Star Trek though, because I recognized it and went, "Hey, that's where Kirk fought the Gorn." I think
it's near like Burbank or something, and so it's used a lot in shows. Because that's where like all the studios are. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. But yeah, so that is episode 3 of Star Trek Picard. So I like it. I think it's off to a better start than Discovery was, for a number of different reasons. Even though I do think it still has some clunky exposition, which was a problem in the first episode as well. That may just be something I have to live with. Luckily, all the things I like are enough to really make me enjoy watching it anyway. And the more Borg stuff we get, the better. So. Good stuff. So let us know what you think of the episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, you can head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, can't you, Tara?
Yep. Oh, you want me to do the thing?
That was the plan, yes.
Oh yeah. If you want to support what we do, you can check out the Patreon page and donate as little as $1 per month, and that'll get you bonus episodes of shows we do, including our science fiction movie review show, The Ace, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. You can check out how we feel about certain more B-movie sci-fi called classics. So please go check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, like Time Cop.
Boop boop. Well, that's not really a B movie. That's Time Cop's a B movie. A-lister.
No, if anything, the movies that we typically do on that show and the bonus episodes are C and D movies, maybe even Z movies. But
they are Mystery Science Theater adjacent films.
Yes, that's a fair statement. So yeah, and make sure you check out me and Connor working our way through Star Trek: The Next Generation. We are just about done with season 2, so go and have a look at that. We did all the original series, almost done season 2 of Next Gen. Go and have a look. But that is pretty much us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, guys. Oh, I almost went into my Next Gen outro. I'm like, no, I don't do that in this one. I can't.
Engage.
I can't do it. No. So thank you for watching, guys. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?